My wife put it best. If you're going to play in a fantasy RPG, why play a boring old human? Why not play a dragon? Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the show and welcome all the new faces. Glad to have you. Sit yourself down, have a cool drink because we got ourselves one heck of a find for this Tabletop Tuesday show where we discuss all the awesome games that have entertained us throughout the long years. And before we begin, a big country thanks going out to Justin at Books, Bricks, and Boards. Check out his channel if you haven't. He's got a ton of great videos over there covering all kinds of games and gaming stuff. And this here video would not have been possible without his video, 10 Great Things About AD&D 2nd Edition, posted about a week ago. So maybe go give that a view once you're done with this one. In said video, he covers a wide variety of AD&D 2E products, and y'all know me, I've been playing 2E since it came out, and it remains near and dear to my heart after 30 odd years. However, nobody knows everything about everything. There just ain't no such animal. So it is with great excitement, overwhelming excitement, you might say, as it caused me to run right out and grab a new book that Justin's video exposed me to campaign option Council of Worms. You might say the missus and I are dragon freaks. We love all things dragon. So when I heard there was a 2E set out there that let you play as a dragon, well, I had to have it immediately. Shockingly, the copy I acquired from eBay got here in surprisingly quick order. Plenty of time to get a video together on it and extol its many virtues. Let's get into it. Council of Worms started out as a box set designed by Bill Slavicek when he was at TSR. You might recognize old Bill from his time at West End Games. Yes, the very same D6 system featured prominently on this channel. Man, I miss playing some Star Wars. Might have to dive back into that setting in the not so distant future, but I digress. This was back in '94. It included 3 rule books, one for the base rules, one for dragon families and clan histories, and one that contained adventure modules. Within the rules, a dragon's color substituted for race and class, although there were classes per se in the form of draconic kits, like the Dragon Mage, the Dragon Priest, and the rare Dragon Psionicist. New proficiencies like chanting, looting, and draconic forms of religion were added. If one didn't want to run a dragon, and I'm not sure who wouldn't, but those kind of people, we would respectfully ask them to leave. I'm kidding, I'm kidding. But if you weren't comfortable with a dragon, there were a couple options. You could run a half dragon spawned from the union of a mortal and a polymorph dragon, or I suppose you could do that vice versa if you're so inclined, but anyway, that. You could also run one of the demi-human vassals that serve the dragons. Now, this part I mention in particular as it presented an obvious argument that I had never considered. Why would dragons only utilize demi-human servants? Are they racist? Well, no, it's just that demi-humans live so much longer than, say, humans, to which the rusty old light bulb between my ears clicked into place, and I went, oh, yeah, that makes sense. This paradigm is presented as the default for the setting, a chain of islands called Io's Blood Isles. The dragons of these isles are loosely democratic, all the clans getting a vote on anything that might affect all the dragons therein. The islands are named after Io, a draconic god that split himself open and littered his innards across the sea, creating these islands for the dragons to live on peacefully. Yes, by legend, the dragons are living on his guts. You gotta wonder, if someone not native to the island were to visit, would it reek of rotten guts to them, not being nose blind having lived there? But one wonders. Anyway, though. So the dragons didn't want to live peacefully and started warring with one another, now fighting on top of Io's guts. He was watching all this from another plane of existence and came up with a new plan. He'd hand humans every conceivable tool to kill dragons. Then the dragons would have to band together to survive. It worked for a while. The dragons banded together, drove off the humans, then immediately started fighting with one another again. Io then sent visions to some very old, very powerful dragons to bring together a council where everything's voted on. This perplexed me as I figured, okay, if everyone's fighting everyone, how did they ever come together and form this council? Who was there to enforce it? But I digress. So far, the council has worked, and peace reigns among Dragonkind on the Isle. So far. Rick Swan reviewed the set for Dragon Magazine 213 in January of 95. His recommendation was as interesting as his criticism. He stated the set was ideal for anyone sick of wizards, fighters, and thieves. Interesting takeaway. Not anyone who just wants to play a freaking dragon. Whatever, though. Further, he criticized the set for having no longevity. The dragons are too disruptive to function in a traditional AD&D setting. Yeah, that's the point. This simply requires the DM to come up with the content instead of buying it prepackaged from the store. It's not that much of a hurdle, honestly. You take an adventure, you can even adapt existing adventures to a dragon campaign. Just takes a little bit of creativity. The box set would go on to win an Origins Award for Best Role Playing Adventure of 1994, and it would further be reprinted in hardcover form in 99. And that's the copy I have here. Personally, I prefer the hardback as it fits very nicely in with my existing player's options and such. Now, all this being said, how is the info contained herein? And I ask that question specifically from a position of someone who wants to play a freaking dragon. Well, I can tell you, with all humility, this is the best iteration of bringing Dragon PCs into D&D that I have come across so far. And you can even go back and check my Dragonflight 5e video from this. This is this is so much better than that. No offense. The setting I could care less about, as the missus and I either do our own homebrew or some variation of Azeroth or something like that. So I won't be diving into the IO Isles on this. But the character generation is excellent. There are some nutty rules about disallowing certain aspects of having high ability scores, as dragons do, but a DM is free to ignore or enforce said rules at their discretion. Personally, I really enjoy the way ability scores are generated. You roll them up as you would any stat, then it gets adjusted based on your race, your draconic race, then it gets adjusted as you start out as a hatchling. Yes, you heard me right. You get to start out as a little baby deacon, newly hatched out of your shell and ready to go on little adventures. As a big fan of Little Scales Daycare there in Valdrakken during the Dragonflight expansion for World of Warcraft, I just loved it. I mean, I absolutely loved it. And if you want to start out older and bigger, you can just start at a higher level, as with any AD&D 2e product. Slavacek took what could have been an absolute quagmire of tail-chasing nuance and made it extremely simple. I applaud the man. This rule set is excellent. As stated before, there's just a slew of detail. Your draconic aspects, like a breath weapon, hit dice by age, size by age, all that. A ton of fascinating proficiencies, some of which are combat oriented, and the aforementioned kits as well, adding that last little bit of detail to feel really complete as a Dragon PC. There's also a bit section on dragon fights, covering what maneuvers or tactics are popular with any particular type of dragon. This can be really helpful for someone who doesn't want to sit and think of 30 different tactical mindsets. Now, if you're like me, this thing flew under your radar, so I am boosting the signal for anyone who has any desire to play a Dragon PC. This is your rule set. This is the one you want. Love it. Can't wait to sit down with the missus and explore it. And there you have it, folks. Campaign option Council of Worms for AD&D 2e. Thanks again to Justin over at Books, Bricks, and Boards for bringing this to my attention. This might be my favorite acquisition of 2025, or several other years for that matter. Now, I'm going to pass turn and let y'all go get your own copy, roll up some Dragon PCs, and start gathering that treasure hoard. Thank you, one and all, for tuning in today. I appreciate you, and I hope to see you again next week. That's all I got for today, so get out there, y'all. Roll you some dice of your own, gather around the table, make some memories, maybe pop in a good movie, watch a cartoon, read a comic, drink you a little water, get you some exercise. And as always, have a good one.